Hello everyone and welcome back to the Boater Bug Fish Care series. We're going over setting up a tank and maintaining it for some fishy finny friends in your household. If you're watching this video, thank you very much because you are doing the responsible thing. Today we are talking science and the nitrogen cycle. So, do you want me to go over the basics of the nitrogen cycle? Do you wanna hit it?
I'll kind of just go over it, and then you can go over the more detailed stuff.
Okay.
So, basically, with the nitrogen cycle, basically the nitrogen cycle is a result of having things die in your tank.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is not always a bad thing. It's a great thing. It's good for your tank.
It's the cycle of life.
Yeah. So as things die, they rot, they give off ammonia.
So let me be perfectly clear. When we're talking things, ideally we're not talking your fish or your plants. We're talking about microbes, algae, bacteria. Let me say that before we continue.
Yeah. Anything that rots, essentially, like even like fish food that you put in the tank will eventually rot and it'll give off ammonia. Fish poop gives off ammonia. Anything biological waste essentially will give off ammonia. That ammonia will then get converted into nitrite.
Yep.
And then the nitrite will eventually get converted into nitrate, and then the nitrate you need to remove from the tank.
Yeah, so a proper, like a full-sized ecosystem will have all the microbes and such that are needed to maintain that pretty much effortlessly. Obviously, nobody needs to go down to, the duck pond and clean it out because most of the time it's fine. In a 40-gallon tank, bigger, smaller, whatever, a household tank, it is not large enough to be self-sustaining in that kind of ecosystem, so there is effort that needs to go into it. And it's all about beneficial bacteria. Beneficial bacteria turning the ammonia into
nitrite,
and then
nitrite
into nitrate.
Why science couldn't come up with less confusing, similar names for that, I'll never know.
Scientists! Oh, look at them swimming through the... Yay! Okay. So, the downside of not properly having this cycle set up is that your fish will die rather quickly to nitrogen poisoning. Just take some ammonia and pour it on yourself.
Yeah.
It's not pleasant.
Yeah, they'll die. They'll get ammonia burns on their scales and their fins or their gills. They'll have really complicated injuries I had a goldfish that unfortunately the water didn't get changed as often as it should have, and the filter went bad. So he ended up suffering, I think it was nitrate poisoning, or basically like he ended up kind of convulsed and curled into like this half moon shape, sitting on the side of the tank flapping around, on the bottom of the tank flapping around. He lived like that for days because I had no way of putting him down, and I really wanted to hope that he'd pull through, but he didn't make it because he just ended up, it was a poisoning throughout the system. There was nothing that could be done at that point.
So don't get depressed about your fish, cycle your tank. So, when you're first getting a tank set up, I'm sorry, I needed to pull it away from that. Anyway, when you're getting a tank set up, you need to cycle it. And that is, to get that nitrogen cycle established in your tank. And there's a few ways of doing it. When you have your tank fully set up, you've got the lights and everything like that, before you put any fish in, the easy way is to get a kit. And I don't know much about these, but...
Right. So like a common one people use is called Tetra Safe Start. Tetra's just the brand name. Safe Start is the product.
Yeah.
It's basically just like a thing that you dump in your tank, measured amounts, and it's got all of the bacteria, and it will convert this into that, and this into that, and it will even out a bunch of your levels. There are a lot of similar products like that. You dump it in and you put in a few fish at a time. Let's say this is a 40-gallon tank and you want to put 20 fish in there. Don't dump in your thing and then put your 20 fish in there, because you're going to overload your cycle, you're going to overload your tank.
Yeah, you will have a small amount of bacteria, and then all of a sudden they realize that there's 20 fish worth of poop.
Yeah.
And the spare food to take care of.
So you're going to want to slowly add them in with that product. Really with any cycling, but just especially a lot of beginners will think, oh, well, I cycled my tank with this, so I can just start throwing fish in there, and it's great.
Yeah, it's a gradual process. There's other ways to cycle as well, and all of them you need to take it easy, step by step. The way that I cycled this one is just to have it fully set up, lights on during the day, lights off, whatever, and just drop in food. a couple times a day, and the food will have some bacteria along with it, and as the food decomposes, it's releasing that nitrogen in the form of ammonia. That eventually, what happens, and there's a cool graph of this. If I can't find it, basically what happens is that you have a lot of ammonium, and then it goes down. You have a lot of
nitrite,
and then that goes down, and you have nitrite, and then nitrates start to come up. I'm just gonna like cover my face when I say the wrong one with the correct term.
Bleep it.
Nitrate.
like Rue.
Nitrate. I'll have ingredient board step in to do that.
happy to help.
But yeah, so it happens in a more natural way, and it's a good way of doing that as well. But you got to do that for at least a couple weeks. I think I was doing it for about a month before putting any fish in.
There's a few other ways of doing it as well. You can, I mentioned in a previous episode, you can kind of kickstart your tank by taking gravel from a tank that is already cycled and seed it. You put this baggie of gravel in your tank. I put mine in the filter. You can, I think you can put it anywhere. And it will kind of just start putting, the bacteria in there. We'll kind of start doing it that way. There's also, I've seen online where some people will literally just dump pure ammonia in the tank, and
that seems super sketchy to me.
There's
debate.
there's a way of doing it, and they're like, oh, you just dump ammonia in, and then this happens, and it's like rocket fast in less than a week, blah blah blah. And I'm just like, that's cool, but I don't want to dump ammonia in my tank.
Yeah, it's just it's a personal hang-up of mine.
Yeah.
No offense,
like,
people that are ammonia dumpers.
I'm sure that it's perfectly awesome, and I'm sure that works great for the people that do it. I mean, they wouldn't do it if it didn't work great, I assume.
Yeah.
But it's just, I would rather, a little bit of food, or some people will put a little bit of fish, literally, oh, I had haddock for dinner.
Wow.
Throw fish in there.
On a different, there are ways of cycling by using fish, by just putting fish in and starting with some really hardy starter fish. But while it can work, you are likely to lose some fish, and I want you to have this image in your mind. Getting a puppy and putting it in an enclosed room where you will add food, but say, don't worry about where you poop and whatever, we'll send someone in to clean it up. In 2 or 3 weeks we'll have a system in place for that. You wouldn't put a mammal pet through that. Don't put your fish pets through that.
Fish are animals too, they're not just decoration, they are living things, they do hurt.
Yeah.
They do get scared. Okay, well you didn't get scared because
that male has
whatever.
been chasing that female this entire time that we've been doing this, so I think they're occupied.
Yeah, but the zebrafish are much more
skittish.
Well, yeah.
Stop.
So
don't tap on the glass.
Whatever, I can break my own rules. Besides, they have plenty of space to hide.
Yes, they do.
Look how excited.
So that's the nitrogen cycle. There's a few. I lost it. There's a few other parameters about the water. A few more sciencey things that are important as well. First off, when you're adding water, use what's called water conditioner, because water straight out of your tap will have chlorine in it. It might be a bit too hard. There might be other additives that are added in your tap water, and
always use cold water from the tap.
Yes.
Never use hot water from the tap, because hot water's been sitting in your tank or in your pipes for a long time and it's gotten stuff from the pipes in it. Use cold water.
Yep.
If you do have a tropical tank that you can't just dump 40, 50 degree cold water into, either let it sit in a bucket to warm up, or put some in a pot and boil it, and then mix it in with the cold water straight from the tank, and then you have whatever temperature water you want.
Yeah, what I do is I fill up a 5-gallon bucket and let it sit for at least a couple hours, usually overnight, so that the temperature is, not too much of a shock when it goes in.
Advantage to goldfish. I can just use water straight from the tap. They don't care.
They don't care. So we already went over ammonium, nitrite, and nitrate. I'm now using the key from a dipstick test. For testing water, and there's a few ways to test, and we'll go over that right at the end of this video. There's also the hardness of the water. Depending on where you live, your water might be very hard, and you may need to get some water softener from your pet store to
the same thing that will put those nasty scaly deposits on your shower head or on your bathtub or on your shower curtain is the same thing that's going to affect your water for your fish.
Yep. Chlorine and alkalinity are a couple things that the water conditioner will take care of as long as you treat water before you put it into your tank. And then there's pH. And most of the time you want neutral pH of 7. But fish will have different tolerance ranges. Different fish will actually prefer a different pH. So there's some compatibility issues there. Usually not too bad. It will also slightly affect your nitrogen cycle, I heard, whereas above 7 you have ammonium and below it you have ammonia, or the other way around or something. Again, as long as your tank is cycled, it's okay, but just something to be conscious of if you want to look into that some more. Anything else about the nitrogen cycle, water parameters, or any other sciencey stuff?
Oh, yeah, if you have live plants in there, it will affect your cycle in such that they will absorb bad nutrients from the water, so it will actually take longer to cycle your tank. Once your tank is established, live plants are great because they help soak up some of the extra poop and stuff.
But you want to make sure that you have a full, healthy cycle and bacterial colonies in your tank first before adding live plants. So nothing living goes in until you have cycled the tank. Hey everyone, we forgot to talk about water testing, so I'm here at Jen's place a couple days later, getting to say hi to Ben and John over here. Does the Pleco have a name?
No.
No? Okay, that's okay. Most of my fish don't have names except for Patches, one of the Plecos in Hoover.
I might have named him at some point, but he's very shy, so...
You named one of my fish Hoover. Anyway, what we forgot to talk about was water testing, because we kind of glossed over that. And there's a few different ways to test your water parameters, and again, this is ammonia, pH, everything like that. The cheapest way, I would say, probably, is to get a strip test set like this, and in here, there's just strips with little colored pads on it. You dip it in the water and just compare it to the sheet that is supposed to stay attached to the bottle, but I didn't. And this will test for nitrites, nitrate, pH, alkalinity, and chlorine. It does not test for ammonia, or at least this particular one does. For most dipstick tests, you will need a separate one for ammonia itself. Again, if you have a fully cycled tank, you shouldn't be seeing ammonia, but it's a good thing to check anyway. To realize if you're being overzealous with your cleaning and recycling your tank, it's a good thing to keep an eye on. So that's the dipstick test. That is the cheapest and easiest way to do it. Slightly more accurate than that, Jen, what have you got?
I have the water test kit, and it's a kit, and it's actually significantly more accurate, which is why I picked it up. The dipstick test is like a general guideline. If you notice your numbers are off, then you can fix something. This is going to give you a much clearer picture of what goes on. You've got little 5 milliliter test tubes, evenly measured, and then you put in, depending on whether you're testing for, let's say nitrate, you put in 5 drops, and then nitrite, you might put in 8 drops of each of 2 bottles. Same with ammonia. There's 2 bottles for ammonia.
I think ammonia is put in 10 drops. And then shake it
shake it vigorously for 30 seconds. Then you put in I think 8 more drops of test bottle number 2.
And then you shake it like a Polaroid picture.
Shake it, and then you let them all sit for 5 minutes apiece, and you let them develop. And then you compare it to this color chart.
Yep. So it's got some similar whatever, but you're holding up the actual water, not just a litmus kind of thing. You're actually holding up the water to compare the color there.
Complicated little booklet to tell you how to work it as opposed to a little dipstick test. And the reason that I picked this up is because I have had water quality issues because I have goldfish and they tend to be a lot more dirty. And I've never had goldfish before. I always grew up with tropical fish. So it was, a learning experience, and I really wanted to make sure that all of my parameters would be set. So this is going to run you between $30 and $50, as opposed to that, which is probably 10 or less.
I think it was 10 for a 2-pack with the ammonia stick bottle as well.
This doesn't test for chlorine, but it does test for ammonia, which I figure is kind of more important for me.
That's really good for testing nitrogen cycle stuff as well as the pH. This does have the addition of chlorine, alkalinity, and water hardness, but that's more just a measure of, are you putting enough conditioner into your tap water? Right. Once you've done that a few times, you should be set. That's not going to change too much.
Right.
So dipstick being the cheapest and easiest, then you move on to this, and you can also just bring your water into a fish store. And is that more accurate? I actually haven't done that. Have you brought water into a fish store?
Most fish stores just do the dipstick test. You go a major chain store with a dipstick test. Some of your local fish stores will probably, if you ask them, they might do the water test kit like I have, because it's more likely that they're going to be testing their water that way. I know there's a local place that I go to that's got probably like between 50 and 75 fish tanks. So I'm willing to bet that, I mean, like, they also breed their own fish there, so they know what they're doing. I bet
Yeah.
that if you brought in your water to test, he'd probably, if you wanted, go through the whole, water kit like that.
Yeah, but again, you're basically looking at the cheap and easy dipstick test or the more complicated water test. What you might do is get a dipstick test to do on a weekly basis. You should really be testing your parameters.
Right.
And if you get that, at least bring it into a local fish store that will do a liquid test if you don't end up getting one of those kits yourself.
Probably depends a little bit on the fish you have. Like, if you have zebrafish, which are a lot more hardy, you can probably just get away with the dipstick test. If you have fish that you know are very sensitive or are not as hardy, then you probably do want to go with your more accurate test kit.
Yeah, you're mentioning that loaches will be a little more sensitive to water changes.
Yeah, any scaleless fish will be very sensitive to water conditions.
Cool. So if that was it, then we have now finished 3 days of setting up your tank. Tomorrow we finally get to add fish to the tank. So if you want to see that, we're going to talk about some different kinds of fish, concerns that you might have with different types, and you know what I forgot to mention? Everything that we've said, and I'm going to mention this in the description, everything that we've said is for freshwater. None of us have any experience with saltwater fish. Everything that we've gone over the past 3 days, if you want to do a saltwater tank, everything that we said in the past 3 days, but more.
Yeah,
it's a lot more care.
It's a lot of the basics are the same for saltwater
The
tanks.
general theories are the same, but the specifics are going to be different.
Yeah.
So that's, we're not talking about that. We're talking about freshwater. So we'll talk about freshwater fish going into the tank tomorrow. If you want to see that video, be sure to subscribe down below. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.com/BoaterBug, and support me on Patreon.com/BoaterBug. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good one, and we'll see you tomorrow.